How are you today, by the way? Are you good?
I'm great.
I love
I'm
it.
great. Feeling good.
I love it. It's actually kind of funny. I wanted to say this. During quarantine, where my kids are here, 24/7. My wife's here 24/7. I'm here. It just happened to be that she wanted to go to her Breathe studio to get smoothies and a couple snacks today for take right now, so that it could be quiet. And she didn't even know that this was happening, so it kind of worked out.
Oh, it's great. Yeah, you should have. I don't know if you've had Cindy, the founder of Breathe, but she's got two kids. They have, I think, 4 kids.
Yeah.
So she might be perfect for this.
She definitely would be, and she's on my short list for sure. Well, Davidji, again, thank you so much for being here. I really appreciate it. The first thing I always ask all my guests that I have on, and I'm really interested to hear how you respond to this, is when you wake up in the mornings, you get up, what fills your heart? Like, what is it that makes your heart just sing out loud to the universe each day currently in your life?
Huh. Gee, what makes my heart sing?
Yeah.
Waking up makes my heart sing. I'm one of those people who launches out of bed every morning. I wake up usually about an hour before the sun's come up. So the first birds, I'm up with the first birds, and so I like to actually wake up in darkness. I like to meditate in darkness, and I like to feel the sun come up. I sort of like use that as my meditation timer. So usually about maybe 20 minutes into my meditation, sun starts coming up, first light. And so that's the first thing I do. I wake up and I meditate. That's like, my technique that I've been sharing with the world for the last 20 years is
right.
PM, rise, pee, meditate. So that's what I do. I rise, I pee, and then I meditate. I love coffee. It happens after. I love walking with Peaches, the Buddha princess, my dog. That happens after. Peaches meditates with me. But I'll leave my bed, and I actually am excited to wake up and connect to the stillness and silence that rests within. And part of that process is asking some important questions. I'll ask, who am I when I'm my best version? I'll ask, what am I grateful for? And I'll do that sometimes for like 3 to 5 minutes, just going over my gratitude list. And a lot of things that you would not assume you'd be grateful for, like I'm grateful for coronavirus. I'm grateful for suddenly being like locked in my house, quarantined.
Well, can I stop you there? Can I ask you why? How can you be grateful for that? I'm not disagreeing. I'm just asking. Like, what are your reasons for that?
Yeah. Well, I guess
because I love it. I love that aspect. So.
Yeah. So I guess the these are like deep philosophical questions. So like I don't live my life painting things as good or bad.
Okay.
So I don't see people as bad. I don't see, no matter who they are, it doesn't matter. I don't see them as bad. I don't see situations as bad. And maybe this is, studying, ancient, teachings for a really long time.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I see the thing. I see so what's this thing? And then I look at all the components of it, the yin and yang of all things. So I look at this horrible virus that is killing people and creating, the concept of panic in our environment.
Mm-hmm.
And then I see this other thing that's helping to reconnect us to the stuff that really matters to us, and suddenly giving us pause. I think each one of us at some point in our life but only 1,000 times, well, actually maybe 10,000 times, has said, "Ah, I wish I could just slow the world down just a little bit," or
Mm.
"I wish cars weren't belching all this pollution into the air," or "I'd love to spend time at home with my family, just a little bit more time," or "I've been working so hard for the last 5 years. If I could just have some kind of break,"
Mm.
or just let everything just slow down just a little bit. I'm overwhelmed. So we've probably said that, lightly, or we've even prayed for it at other times. And so like I see this when I look at like the era of COVID, which is sort of like what I think of it, this era,
Yeah.
the last 6 months or so. It's forced us all to reconnect to those important things that matter to us. And a lot of stuff that doesn't matter, that we were once spun out over, that's sort of gone. We're spun out over other stuff.
Yeah.
But as I look at the world, it seems to be, other than everyone getting swept up in panic or anxiety or fear or what ifs,
Right.
I see it as more peaceful. I see,
Mm.
when I'm walking my dog in the morning, people are, I mean, we're all sheltering in place. So like, they're on one side of the road, we're on the other side of the road. Um, it just feels to me that there's like a whole bunch of peace. There's also a whole bunch of fear and panic and anxiety, but those are translations, those are interpretations. There's not actually fear or panic or anxiety outside of us. That's how we're translating what's going on. And it's really uncertainty, unknown. Will I run out of money? Will I catch this thing? Those things they're real. That's,
Yeah.
will I die? Will people I love die? And then I won't be able to be with them, when they're dying, or I won't be able to see them. But again, it's that we're projecting ourselves like, what if that happens? And then we can go there. So that's really a translation.
Mm.
So I see the, I'm grateful for everything. I'm grateful for my trauma. It's taught me and strengthened me, made me more resilient.
Mm.
I'm great. That doesn't mean that I can't sit and sob, hysterically over
Yeah.
horrible things that have happened to me, or really feeling pain and experiencing it. But I realize that every time I look at someone and judge them in a certain way, it has nothing to do with them. It's like, it's me, I'm like formulating this person is good or bad, or, I'm making that up. And so, yeah, my gratitude practice can get pretty, intense, because there's some mornings where I'm like, thank you so much for that political person that I can't stand, that's helping me to crystallize how I feel truly inside of me, and maybe I should just send them some compassion. So that's really what I'm going through. I'm like working out my stuff during my gratitude practice, and
Yeah.
thanking whomever for all these, I would call them all gifts. They're wrapped in different packaging, but they're all gifts.
Yeah. Now you weren't, that was beautiful. Now you weren't always having this outlook, I'm assuming.
No.
This takes, it takes years of practice and unpacking and meditation and a bunch of other things, right? Can you, for people listening, my listeners, not all of them know your story. If you want to just give like a brief of like where you were before this, and then that moment that really, I think everybody in life has either like almost a gradual, but there is some sort of a shift moment that creates you to make that decision to do something different or change or transform or whatever you want to call it. What's your short story?
Yeah, well, I'm a meditation geek. I am that. I wasn't always, and I love exploring the ancient teachings. My most recent book, Sacred Powers, was really exploring all the ancient indigenous cultures to try to find what were the commonalities, that connected cultures, 2, 3, 5, 10,000 years ago.
Yeah.
Like what were those, what were those basics that they all believed in? And you can find that. And whether that's a culture, an indigenous culture in North America or Asia or India, there are so many commonalities that have existed for thousands and thousands and thousands of years. But this is all, in my last 20 years that I've put attention on that. Prior to that, I was, I was deep in the corporate world, and I was a bond trader for a while, and I was a mergers and acquisitions advisor, worked on Wall Street, worked in I'm from Queens. I'm from Queens, New York. We're very, as you come out of the womb, the doctor whispers in your ear, like, okay, here's how it works. Focus and effort. If it's not working, more focus. That's not working, more effort. And that's it. Now
More
get
hustle.
out there.
More hustle.
Right. That's it. Get out there and kill them. So I lived there. Step over anybody who's in your way. Get your elbows really sharp, and get what's yours, type of thing. And I believe that. I lived that. I was probably, I was a jerk for most of my life. I had probably pretty low emotional intelligence. Wasn't paying attention to how other people were feeling or emoting or even my own feelings. I was just like on this, laser beam focused. Let me get out there. Let me crush it. And that led to me, working 18 hours a day, 7 days a week, and probably not being a great. I was a great provider, but I was not a great partner. I don't think. I'm sure my wife would probably go, yeah, probably right. But at a certain point in time, and really my defining moment was 9/11, because I had worked in the World Trade Center for a while, and I had left there about 6 months before 9/11 to take another job for someone who, was just a horrible person. But they dangled a whole bunch of stuff in front of me and my partner, and we bit at it. And of course, none of that ever materialized. We just just traded in our lives to work for the devil, and with the hope of having riches, and of course, no riches, only agony. And I remember on 9/11, we were like 20 blocks up from Tower 2, from the World Trade Center where I'd worked for a while. And we were standing on the roof of that building. I was COO of this company at the time, with a whole bunch of my staff, and we were standing on the roof watching as Tower 2 collapsed. And that sort of like snapped something in my brain, snapped something in my heart. But when you see something that's not even possible, and it happens, and it turns everything every belief system you've ever had in your entire life just gets blown up. That just cracked inside of me. And in that moment, I was just overwhelmed by my entire life and by everything in existence. And about a week later, I was in Lower Manhattan, walking past a row of cardboard boxes that people were living in. And I walked past this particular cardboard box, and this hand reached out, grabbed my pant leg, and this guy, peered up at me and said, "What's going to be on your tombstone?" And it's a fairly reflective question. In any other moment, I would have just kept walking by, but I just stopped and hung out with this guy. It seemed like hours. The entire world stopped. All sound stopped. All the noise of New York City stopped. It was only me and him in that moment. And, and those words were just like rippling through me. And I walked a couple of blocks after that, really a couple of steps after that, and realized I was like dripping sweat. Tears were coming down, my eyes. My knees were weak. I sat down on some steps of an apartment building, just 100 feet away or so. And, I was asking myself, like, what is going to be on my tombstone? Why am I here? Why am I doing everything? What's the purpose of everything? And I came home, that day and spoke to my wife. And I said, like, you wouldn't believe what happened, and like shared that whole thing, all aspects of it. And she said, you need to quit that job. Wow. And I've been a fairly obedient husband in my life. And so very shortly after that, I left that job. And she said, you should, there's this guy, Deepak Chopra, who's doing this meditation retreat in Oxford, England. You should go do that. And I was like, really? And I was like, oh, okay. Because I'd started meditating in college. Okay. I went to school upstate New York. Syracuse.
Yeah.
And there was an experimental Asian studies class where we all, practice meditation and stuff like that. And that slipped away from me, over the years. It sparked me. I explored a lot of different kinds of meditation, for like 10 years after I left college, but they all slipped away as I got deeper and deeper into the corporate world. So when she said, this guy Deepak Chopra is doing a meditation retreat, and this would probably be really good for you, I was like, okay, let me do that. And so, again, fairly obedient. I was like, okay, yes, dear. So I did that, and there was supposed to be like 3,000 people at this retreat, but it was only a couple of months after 9/11, so like there were like 50 people there. So it was really an opportunity for me to go really deep with this guy Deepak Chopra, who I'd never heard of or met, and that's really where I connected with him. I meditated. We were meditating for like 6, 7, 8 hours a day.
Do you remember the first meditation you did with him, with that group? Do you remember like how you felt, or what like emotions you had around it, or can you remember that?
I was very, very emotional in that period of time, and I don't think anyone explores, quote, spirituality, whatever that even means.
Right.
I don't think anyone really explores it unless there's some type of wound. I think that's the reason people get on a path of deeper exploration, deeper self-exploration. There's a wound, and you're trying to somehow, intuitively, it needs to be healed, or you feel too much pain. I think pain can be a really, really powerful motivator for anything.
Sure.
So yeah, I remember that first meditation. I remember really those first 3 days of meditations, because what happened on the third day was suddenly my heart just cracked open. And for the first time, probably in about 20 years, I felt joy. And I had not experienced the concept of joy. It was almost like it was a new thing. It's like joy. It was like happiness, like unconditional, like feeling really, really, really soft and light. And I had not felt light. I'd been like really, really heavy for a really long time. And I reached out to my wife and I said, listen, I think I'm actually going to go to India after this thing in England. I spoke to Deepak and he was like, yeah, you should check out India. And I was like, okay, I'll do that. And so she said, okay. So, got a visa for India.
Crazy.
And then when this thing ended on day 7, I headed off to India in search of the guru. That's what I was doing. I was like searching for the guru, and I went into the Himalayas to try to find His Holiness the Dalai Lama. He wasn't there that day, but I didn't know. I was just like heading around. I traveled. I bathed in the Ganges River, and I like did yoga every morning and meditation every afternoon, and read the Bhagavad Gita, this ancient book of
How long were you
wisdom.
out there for?
I had a 6-month visa, and I was there for about 5 months and 28 days.
And you were married at the time?
I was married.
Yeah,
and you with the most supportive, amazing being on the planet, who was just looking for me to get to the other side of my emptiness.
You realize my shock in that, like, as in 2020, I know you don't see a lot of relationships where someone would be like, yeah, in like an early marriage, yeah, just take 6 months, go to India. That's cool. No problem. I'll just hang out and I'll figure things out here. Like, I love you. Like, it's fine. Go ahead, explore.
Yeah, I think my wife sensed such a deep wound inside of me. Maybe 9/11 was the wound. Maybe 9/11 was the spark. A lot of people I knew died, and really everything inside of me. I went into like very, very deep depression after that. But yeah, often when I tell this story to people, they say, "Are you still married to that same woman?"
Yeah.
Because that's a figure. That's definitely the first wife. She is my first and only. So yeah, and cool. I did a lot of, there was a really, really a lot of introspection there, and I was searching for the guru, and honestly, yeah. It was like 5 months and 28 days later, and I'm laying in a hammock, reading the Bhagavad Gita, which I read every day. Einstein read it every day. I figured good enough for Einstein, definitely good enough for me.
That makes
You know,
total sense.
they say that our brains are closer to those of monkeys than they are to Einstein's brain. You know, so the rest of the human race is actually closer to the simian brain than to Einstein's brain. So I figured whatever Einstein did, I'm I'm doing that. Maybe it'll get me closer to an answer. And
Grow
so I
your
was like,
hair
well,
out like Einstein and everything.
right, exactly. Oh, he'd be so proud of me. My office is really messy also, and if you ever seen a picture of
Perfect.
Einstein's office, it looks like a bomb hit it. And so, you know, I was reading the Gita, and you know, I had searched high and low for the guru. I had explored everything. I had taken trains and buses and walked and hiked and lived in the jungles and slept on the side of the road, and you know, like the works. I had done like the whole
Wow.
eat, pray, love thing without the eating and the love. You know, just a lot of prayer. And and ultimately, I was reading the Bhagavad Gita, and there's this line in there, chapter 2, verse 48. You know, I have it etched inside of me. And you know, it's Arjuna, the great warriors, is asking God, how am I supposed to live my life? You know, I mean, there's so many powerful parables in the Bhagavad Gita. And God, you know, replies to him. And I don't think Einstein believed in God, but I know he believed in the universe. Replied to him, establish yourself in the present moment and then perform action. That's like one of the truth bombs in the Bhagavad Gita. And I was like, establish yourself in the present moment and then perform action. And suddenly, like, it hit me like a lightning bolt. And I was like, yes, of course. If I can just get still on a consistent basis before I act, I'll act at a higher level. I'll execute at a higher level. I was always running to this and reactive and, you know, so conditioned in all of my behaviors. And suddenly I had like this is how I want to live my life. I want to be able to slow myself down. There's another great line in the Yoga Sutras, which maybe I'm sure you've read, which is yoga chitta vritti nirodha, which is oneness, union with everything, you know, is the progressive quieting of the fluctuations of the mind. So I believe that inside of each of us is the answer to every single question we could ever ask. And if we are willing to allow ourselves to progressively quiet the fluctuations of our mind, we can hear the whispers in our heart. We can hear the whispers of God or of the divine or of your best self or of your highest self. And so like that like hit me like a lightning bolt, and I like raced away from that and was like, oh my God, that's it. That's the answer. That's how I want to live my life. And I like raced back to Mumbai. And of course, racing back to anywhere in India was like, you know, I waited for like 15 hours for a bus to come. And then it took like, you know, 48 hours for the bus to get to Mumbai. God. And then I sat in the airport for another 20 hours. So it wasn't like racing back. And when I got home, a couple of my friends said to me, hey, welcome back. You know, we noticed that you've been here for like a month and all you do is sit around and meditate. You know, there's actually more to life. And I was like, yeah, I know. Meditation, so amazing. It's all I want to do. And they were like, why don't you like help other people, you know, help them meditate since you like, you know, love it so much. And I was like, I'm from New York. I don't care about anyone else's meditation. And they said, well, if you really want to learn something, learn to teach it. And so I looked at my wife and she was like, yeah, you should probably do that. So a friend of mine said, come on, reconnect with your boy Deepak. He has like a meditation center, some wellness center in California. You should check that out. So I said, come on, honey, we'll go out to California. You'll get massages, Ayurvedic massages, these
Sold.
beautiful hot oil massages all day long for like the 4 days of this workshop. And I'll do this thing. And it was actually at that thing that suddenly I thought there's going to be like 500 people. And there were like 30, including me and my wife. And I was like, what's going on here? There should be like hundreds of people, you know? And so I was having a conversation with Deepak and his co-founder, David Simon, neurologist, Deepak Chopra, endocrinologist. So like, you know, physicians who had really embraced this holistic way of looking at health and healing.
Yeah.
And I was like, what's going on here? How come no one's here? You know? And they said, well, you know, since 9/11, not a lot of people are coming here. And I was like, oh my God, this is my skill set. I can turn around companies. That's what I do. That's what I've been doing for like all my life in you know, most of my life in New York. I can help you like bring this place to a, you know, state of really thriving. And they're like, okay, sure. Would you like to be the COO? And I was like, yeah, sure. And I said, I'll go back to New York and I'll call you once a week and tell you what to do. And I'll tell the staff what to do. And David Simon said to me, no, you got to sort of like be here and breathe the air. You got to like live this thing. And that's the only way. So I came home from this lecture, and, you know, my wife was like laying, you know, on the bed in the hotel room, you know, and she's like, you know, totally blissed out from like a 2-hour, you know, 4-handed massage or something like that. And I said, hey, guess what? I got a really great job. And she's like, really? I go, yeah. And she said, what will you be doing? And I said, I'm going to be a COO. She goes, that again? And I said, no, it's for this really beautiful organization that helps people, and people come from all over the world and they like heal and all this other stuff, just like me, I'm healing. And she's like, how much are they paying you? And I said, well, I agreed to do it for free for 6 months. She's like, what? and you know, she goes, you haven't even worked for a year. We've just been like banging the credit cards. You've just been sitting around meditating since you came back from India, and now you're taking a job, you know, for free. And I was like, yeah, I think this is like really what I want to do. You know, she was like, I support you. Okay. So I started the next day as the COO. Within a week, they were like, you should get on the teacher's path and like become a meditation teacher here. I go, well, that's why I came out here initially. I went to that workshop. Yeah. And they were like, yeah, do that. And then I then became the lead educator, you know, over the next like 18 months. Then they asked me to be the dean of Chopra Center University. And so for like 10 years there, I was apprenticing under these two guys, diving deep into all this ancient wisdom, meditating for like 3 hours a day, leading meditation, practicing yoga. Got certified in yoga while I was there as well. Got certified to teach Ayurveda, which is the oldest healing system on the planet, and ran this organization. And then at a certain point, I was like, all right, it's time for me to leave the nest and go out into the world and teach this stuff, you know, to people who don't necessarily have access. I wanted to teach kids in hospitals, and I wanted to teach, you know, people who are struggling, and wanted to travel around the world and you know, do that. And so in 2012, I sort of left that world to bust it out on my own. And so, you know,
when you were at the Deepak Chopra Center, was it like, as far as work wise, I mean, was it pretty, because, you know, compared to being a COO or what you were doing before, you know, merging companies and stuff like that, you know, was it a lot less stress? Was it more flow? Was it,
you know,
less hours?
It was still the same 18 hours a day. 7 days a week, because it was a wellness center, so it was open every day. Yeah. And so I was overseeing, like, you know, all the massage therapists and the marketing team and the sales force and all the instructors and like all these, and the front desk people and our inventory and our products and like all these things. So now I was working just as long, but suddenly I was working for like something that was bigger than me. You know, I had been working for people to make them money for like too long. And, you know, I was just like a little cog in the wheel. And suddenly I was like working for something bigger than me. I was working to help people all over the world connect to these teachings and to heal themselves. And I really loved hanging out with Deepak and Dave. We traveled the world and
so it wasn't it was, you were working, but it almost didn't feel like that work all the time like it did before. And that helps, right?
I haven't worked a day since I quit my job back in New York. Cool. You know, I have done a lot of stuff, and I've been really, really busy. Yeah. And not every moment's fun. You know, some of it's horrible, but I never felt like I was working. You know, I always felt like, you know, oh my God, I'm creating, I'm doing stuff I like. I'm continuing to heal in that process. So maybe you can take take the boy out of Queens, but you can't take Queens out of the boy.
Okay,
But
yeah.
I learned the techniques to help me.
Right.
It's not about, focus and effort. I don't believe that anymore. Um, I, I'll give you I'm speaking out of school here, but I could do that.
That's cool.
So at a certain point, one of my roles was to negotiate these various Chopra centers around the world, to negotiate the contracts for licensing deals. A lot of people were like, we want to create a Chopra center here, and we want to create a Chopra center here. So I was the guy who sort of like, the deals were structured by all the finance people in the organization, but I was the one who negotiated the deals. And, I came back from one deal and I said to David Simon, I crushed him on this one. They're paying us this amount of money and we get a piece of the action here. And, it's definitely, like it's a score. And he goes, is it a win-win? I go, well, if we're both of the wins, it's a win-win. I don't know that it's a win-win for them. No, I think, they're totally disadvantaged. And I struck the greatest deal and they signed, willingly, and he was like, it's not a good deal. I go, what do you mean? We're going to like crush it. He goes, but they're not. They're going to struggle and they're going to suffer. And I was like, yeah, but every deal I've ever structured in my life, if I could negotiate the win for my side, it's a win. He was like, no. We need to, when you strike a deal, everybody's got to be euphoric. And I was like, well, they're definitely not euphoric. And he was like, go back, make them euphoric. And so I went back and renegotiated the deal. And I realized, oh my God, every negotiation, everyone has to be thrilled with it. Because like, if you crushed it and someone else is the loser, there's a certain amount of energy that's like weird energy. We see it in sports all the time. We see it when your team wins the game and the other team like loses with like 3 seconds left. The level of euphoria is like so extreme, and the level of despondency on the other side is so extreme, and that energy is real. Those people are carrying that energy, who knows, for decades maybe. So I realized, like, wait, let me be even more creative. Let me figure out ways for everyone involved in every situation, for every scenario. Let's create just win on all sides. And that was like such an aha moment for me. And and I've always felt like that since then.
That's awesome. Davidji, are you familiar with Mind Valley at all, company?
Sure.
Yeah, I just had Jason Campbell, who works there. He is the host of their podcast called Superhumans at Work. And he talked to me half the podcast about selling with love and that exact concept which you just used. And it was just so recently, and it was the first time I've ever heard that. And now you just said it again, which is obviously the universe speaking. Like that's such an amazing aha moment. I'm so glad you shared that. It's awesome. And
yeah,
so,
I mean, even when you like buy something, I just 3 days ago, I was on the phone with this company that sells fans, and I found like a particular fan that I want to install in my house, and I called them up, and they said, yep, just wear a mask and gloves when you come in, and we're happy to sell you the fan. Imagine that. That's like an essential business in Southern California. So because we've had like 85-degree days.
Right, they need fans, right? You need new,
yeah.
Makes sense.
So I go right before I go, let me check this fan online. I didn't even look anywhere else, and I see it, and it's like $50 less with another company online. So I take a picture of it online, and I figure, well, when I get there, then I'll say, oh, by the way, I saw this fan online for $50 less.
Sure.
So I walk into the store, and I'm feeling a little anxious about it since they told me the price, and since I said I'll be right over, and so there was sort of like a kind of agreement on that price that they gave me, and I was heading right over, and it was like 15 minutes from my house, and I get there, and I'm thinking, do I even go there? Do I let this be a win? Do I hold to the agreement, or do I negotiate the better price? Or it's not like a big box store; it's a smaller store, and I walk in, and she goes, "Here's the fan. And I'm thinking this is in the back of my mind the whole time.
Sure.
I'm just thinking about like $50, you know, do I eat it? Do I do whatever? Like, what's that? And she says, oh, and by the way, I saw the price online, $50 less. So you can have it at this lower price.
What?
And I was like, you know what? That was like, so, you know, I said to her, that's so beautiful. You did not have to say that. And she said, well, you know, I wanted both of us to really feel good about this. And I was like, yeah, it's like beautiful. Like I almost like had tears coming down my face, like buying a fan. And, you know, so I
It's
came home and
amazing.
said to my wife, I
Yeah.
walked in the door and they said, we found it $50 cheaper for you. And she said, well, that's how we live life. If we can just keep trusting and we can just keep moving with an open heart. And so like, I don't know that that's like the parable of all parables, you know, just the fan. But it was like, that was like so powerful. And in that moment, I'm hoping they felt it was a win. You know,
Yeah.
I'm sure they got it at, you know, she didn't give it away to me at a loss, but I felt like a win. And so suddenly like everyone's happy. And like, you're like the third person I've told about this story. So, and the other people I've told, you know, live around here. So like, you know, something like that, the positive ripple of the win-win is more than them even pocketing 50, you know, if they end up with like 3 more customers from my positive experience, you know, it's looking at the much bigger picture. And that's how,
yeah.
that's what meditation allows you to do. It allows you to yoga sta kuru karmani, which is establish yourself in the present moment and then perform action. Get still a little bit and allow things to unfold rather than forcing them and imposing your will on the moment.
That's good. It's what I think about right there, Davidji, as you say it, is like the amount of energy that, like mental energy that goes into a transaction like that. And why not make it good energy, right? If it's that, if we realize what's going into it like that, you know, that's cool.
And I was dreading that conversation, you know?
Oh, this is my wife's bringing me a peanut butter breathe smoothie.
Hey, nice. Love that.
Is
that yeah, that's great. Hey, is that the protein double punch?
Actually, it might be the protein double punch. It's the peanut butter and yeah.
After I came back from that week at Breathe Yoga, I instantly started creating every single day my own protein double punches every single day. And so that's a little unsweetened almond milk, 1 date for sweetness, 2 teaspoons of peanut butter, a teaspoon of maca powder, a teaspoon of Scharfenberger cacao, which is unsweetened cacao, which is like, makes it so amazingly beautiful. And then what I do is I make ice cubes out of espresso so that it keeps it like smoothie. So then I put espresso ice cubes in with like a handful and 2 bananas. And like I zip that thing up. And one scoop of Garden of Life protein powder. And like, it's like one of the most, I can run on that for like, I don't know, 7-8 hours and it feels great. So I'm so happy that you're that you're thinking that.
And she goes, is it okay if I come? I'm like, yeah, come in. It's a podcast. It'll work out fine.
That's great.
You're sharing, you're sharing such amazing things here. Do you have a time when you have to get off?
No.
I usually set aside about an hour or so.
Hold on a second. Let me see when my next is. I am leading meditation for an addiction group at 11 o'clock my time. So, so no, we've got about, we have a solid half hour.
Okay, cool.
That works for you.
That's awesome. Is that a local addiction group or is that?
I don't even know what it is.
Yeah, cool.
Honestly, someone.
That's really neat.
You know, again, honing my craft. Someone, you know, I know that 12-step programs in California, they were like outlawed like 5 weeks ago because they didn't want people getting, you know, hanging out together. And so suddenly I realized there's a lot of people who are struggling out there who could use a little meditation. So
yeah, beautiful.
That's what I do. I do about maybe 2 a day where someone says, hey, could you guide us in a meditation or something along those lines. I'm like, yeah, sure, let's do that.
That's so cool. And for people listening, I said this in the intro, but Davidji has over 300 recorded ones on your website, right?
Yeah, I've actually recorded over 1,100 guided meditations
Phew.
that you could find on Spotify, on Amazon, on Apple Music, on Insight Timer, on Grokr, on Unplugged Meditation app. You know, there's a lot.
Yeah.
And there's at least 300 of them, you know, free on my website as well.
Before I even came on here, I've listened to so many and went through a couple courses of yours and stuff. I was like, oh, I'm like his friend, so this is going to work out great. He doesn't know it yet, but I'm his friend.
Love that.
So I was a curious question I have, and this is actually something that last night I was sitting down with my wife, and I was like, you know, what are something that you would want to know if you were listening to this podcast? And she brought up a really good question that I'm curious about. How has your relationship with meditation changed from when you first really got deep into your practice, and the way that you shared it with people, and the way that you viewed it and what it was doing for you, to today? It's a big gap. But
All right. Well, I would say that I'm heavily meditated now. You know, I've got, you know, more than 10,000 hours of teaching meditation, talking meditation, meditating, you know, and they say that, you know, do anything for 10,000 hours and you become, you know, masterful at it. So I think at the beginning, I was teaching meditation as a person who was not necessarily heavily meditated. You know, I had just begun the journey. And so I was still frenetic and I was still reactive. And believe me, I'm so far from perfect.
interesting.
But I was like doing it, and now I just live it. And so I'm not even, you know, it's probably how you were when you first were a parent. You know, think of like your first couple of years, where like, you know, the baby's crying. How do we do this? You know, how do we do that? And what's this? And like, we need to be good parents, and you know, all that stuff.
Yeah.
And at a certain point, you're just like, this is who I am. You know, I'm this dad. You know, she's the mom, and like we do this thing, and it's just part of who we are. We intuitively make decisions for our kids. Doesn't mean we don't struggle over certain decisions,
Right.
And choices, but we're making them more intuitively, as opposed to like, fast, get that book, how to burp the 6-month-old so she doesn't vomit when she's, you know, like all that
Yeah.
stuff. And so I think that as I have continued to meditate, and made it really the most consistent part of my life that I do, that it flows into everything that I do. So it flows into when I'm teaching a class. I used to think, well, I hope I do a good job teaching this class, and now I just teach a class, and you know, I just share what's, you know, I used to come up with these big presentations, you know, because I do a lot of work in the corporate world. I do a lot of, you know, I'm like the only guy at like the medical conferences who doesn't have like 9 letters after their name. I only, you know, everyone's like MD, FH, you know, like all these other, you know, PhD and all that stuff. And I don't even have 2 names. I only have 1 name. So it's even like more absurd. But, you know, I used to get up there with like all these presentations and lots of bullet points and like all that stuff. And now whenever I teach, even in the most serious corporate environments, whether that's, you know, Facebook or AT&T or so many different corporate environments that I like to teach in,
Yeah.
working with cops, you know, working with members of the military, I don't bring PowerPoints anymore. I don't even bring a computer. You know, I sort of like get in there, ask a whole bunch of questions, find out who everyone is, what does the room need, and then I'll teach that. And so I've become more spontaneous. I think I make better choices now. I get still before I speak. I get still before I act. I get still before I make a big decision. This doesn't make me some like stoner slacker. You know, it really allows me to take a breath. It allows my brain actually to take a breath before I respond to anything that's coming into me. And so I think that's made me a better teacher. That's made me a better meditator. And like one thing feeds the other. I believe it's made me a better version of myself. I'd like to think that. And it's allowed me to surrender a little bit more in life. And
Yeah.
that was not a word in my vocabulary probably for the first 30 years of my life.
Surrender is a powerful word. It's a very,
Yeah.
when
Yeah.
you think about it. Like even in marriages, like when you're fighting to keep your marriage together, when you actually surrender, I've noticed that comes together more simply. I
Yeah,
guess
because
you could say.
you know, I mean, at your funeral, Justin, and at my funeral, no one's going to say, "Oh, and he was right so often." You know, that's not going to be that's not going to be
I've
one of
never
the
heard
things.
that before. It's funny.
You know, when they're making the list of all your great attributes, you know, and he was right. You know, being right is so overrated, and but it seems like so critical in the moment. You know, we've all said, you know, something along those lines where we, you know, just want to like imply, oh, by the way, it would have been a good thing if someone had said that before, or I told you so, you know, one of those kind of things. And the reality is that's way overrated. And I think we can ask the question, do you want peace or do you want to be right? And probably, you know, 95% of the time, probably choosing peace is the best answer. Now, of course, whenever I share that phrase with anyone from the East Coast, they go,
Yeah.
can I have both? Can I have peace and be right? And I'm like, you're missing the whole point. If you still need to be right after that thing, no, you cannot. You cannot be right.
Those are the overachievers. Those are the people that yeah. I get it. That's funny. Yeah, it's funny you mentioned that. It's actually one of my favorite quotes is when you have the choice between kindness and being right, choose kindness every time. Which is very similar to what you said. And I actually, it's funny. I'll be in a moment and I'll actually repeat that to myself. Be like, okay, do I need to be right in this situation, or do I need to be kind and create more of a peaceful moment? And it's like,
you know, when you need to be right, when you're like, when you see a bus hurtling at somebody who's walking across the street and they don't see it, you need to be right by racing into the street and pushing him out of the way. You know, when someone's like about to touch the chainsaw, you need to be right in that moment. But like, we're talking about like, those are so few and far between,
yeah,
that everything else, it's sort of like, it's overrated. It just is,
yeah.
you know, and you know what's underrated? Love. You know, and I know this sounds so like woo-woo and kooky, and I don't mean to come across like that, but it really is. We just need to have a little more acceptance of ourselves and of everyone around us. Just a little bit more acceptance instead of intolerance. We're so intolerant when someone says something that we don't agree with, and like, we're just guessing also. It's not like it's like there's some universal truth that we're saying like, well, it's my truth. It's not a universal truth. It's sort of like my opinion. You know, people can actually weaponize that statement. Oh, this is my truth. No, you have an opinion and you're trying to like, you know, make it sound like more expansive than it is. It's just your opinion.
Yeah.
And we all just have opinions. We're all just trying our best. So if you're trying your best, probably if you loved a little bit more and tried to be right a little bit less, you know, what do they say in the dog world? Because I'm not big on dogma, but I'm really big on dogs. You know, wag more, bark less.
Wag more, bark less. All right. What about well, take a little small shift here. What about during this quarantine? I mean, obviously you work on your relationship, and you know, I have a lot of families that listen to this, a lot of people that are married or together. Have you learned, I mean, in all your years together, you've probably learned a lot, but like during this time, have you learned something new or grew in a different way that you are like, wow, okay, still growing and still learning with your spouse?
Yeah, yeah. You know, a lot of families have someone who leaves the house to work, or two people who leave the house to work, but someone's got to be like the homemaker. Someone's got to be like making dinner, or setting the table, or washing the dishes, or taking out the garbage, or tidying up, or making the bed. You know, like there's like a whole bunch of stuff that we sort of like don't even pay attention to unless you're the one doing that, and then that's on your list. So during this time when you know, I used to, you know, prior to this, I used to travel a lot. You know, I was on the road 200 days a year. So that's a lot, sometimes locally on the road, but a lot of times in planes. I teach all over the world, so I'm flying everywhere. For 3 days here, 4 days there, 1 hour here, and so I have not been doing that. I made a choice actually to like really slow that down about 6 months ago, and spend a little more time with my wife, and to spend a little more time, but constructive time, not just to be home. It's like it doesn't serve anybody. But so yeah, there's like a whole bunch of chores that I was either not seeing, or I had taken for granted, that I sort of proactively said, like, let me take this on, and some of them she's like, no, it's okay, you don't do that very well. There's a reason that I do that one. You can washing the dishes, no, step away. Okay, you just rinse them and put them in the dishwasher, and I actually clean them. So so I've tried to like find things, even like turning over the remote control. I spend a lot of time watching TV with my wife. Our evening activity is, we love to binge stuff, and we love to watch different series, and like but only for 20 years have I controlled that remote. And like, so every night when we sit down, I actually will like pick it up and like hand it to her, and I go, you're the drivers. And so just little things. It's like the little things. She'll go out to do something, and when she comes back in, the table's set. And I clear now. I always clear. And so suddenly the garbage is taken out. So there's like a whole bunch of stuff that it would either be like a coin flip, who's going to do it, or someone would say it. And I'm trying to find all the little things to bring a little more grace into our connection.
Awesome.
And it's not like I then say, hey, how about that table being set? Wasn't that amazing?
Oh, you don't look for recognition? You're not looking for that?
Right. This is purely, it's like making a $10 million anonymous donation, which most people don't do. They want their name on the building. But it's, I'm doing like all this stuff.
Yeah.
She'll come out of the shower, and I go, and she'll get one of the leashes, for our dogs, and I go, I walked them both. Everything's good, or, and I'll, so it's allowed me to lean in a little bit harder into doing more than my share. I don't want her to overhear me, because I don't throw it up, I don't put it in her face, and I don't mention it. I'm just, I think she likes the coronavirus version of me.
Does she ever? It's fun. Does she, like? I don't even know if I'm overstepping my boundaries here by asking this, but does she ever like say you're not doing enough? Has she ever? You guys ever have those conversations, and then you have to find out where you need to do more?
Of course, but we're not scorekeepers in our relationship. We've never been scorekeepers.
Yeah.
So like, no one's keeping a list here. We're not scorekeepers with our friends. We're not scorekeepers with people that we meet. We're not like, well, we did this the last 3 times, so it's not part of our life. So we don't do any scorekeeping here. But she has, I'm a hoarder, and she's not. So like, I hold on to every single thing that ever comes in. So I don't delete emails. I don't throw anything away. I get gifts all the time. People give me like chocolate and T-shirts and tchotchkes, spiritual, chimes and things like that. I don't throw anything away. And I'm also a voracious reader, and I'm reading like, a couple of books every single week. And like, of course, I never like. And so she's the unhoarder. She's like the Marie Kondo of my life, she's like the declutterer.
Yeah.
So like, I'll read all these books, and I'll go, hey, I had a stack of like 30 books here. She goes, I brought them all to Goodwill. Nice job. So like, I'm the one that fills our house with stuff, and she's literally like, lessens our house. So yes, I'm, if there's a conversation, she's so not a hoarder, and I am so a hoarder, that, if there's like ever like arguments in our life, it's not over like anything. Well, maybe it is very serious, but it's over stuff like that.
Yeah,
it's over, like I said, Einstein's office, my office.
Yeah.
So suddenly she'll tidy it up, and I'll go like, no, I knew where everything was until you stacked it all, so yeah, yes, we have,
Okay.
Believe me, I'm like, she's the angel. I'm the devil.
That's so kind of you to say.
I'm the one. She's definitely the better half of the two of us. But yeah, so I figured this was like a perfect opportunity for me to just like, let me step up my game.
Yeah.
Let me step up my game. And the key, of course, will be when they blow the all clear and suddenly you can like, leave your house for more than buying toilet paper. What I'm thinking is I'm going to accelerate it then. I'm not going to like, this is my new normal. I'm going to like even be like, at a higher level of serving. And it's only because like, I want her to feel good. I want her to not have issues. So like I've made personal commitments and I've made lists of stuff I'm going to throw out and of things I'm going to like lessen. So I think this is a great time for all of us to like pull back the bow. We can all just pull back the bow right now on all these things, because we're just going to go back to these conditioned ways that we were before this. And everyone's going to forget, that like, hey, there was like that moment in time in 2020, maybe 20 years from now, we'll even remember like, hey, there was that thing where we all like suddenly realized what we care about in life and what was really important to us, and what were the causes that were relevant, and who was in our front row and whose front row were we in. So I'm taking this time to sort of like level up. I'm taking this time to be even the kinder version of me without anticipation that I'll then settle back, to being a jerk once this has subsided. So you're the only person, and everyone listening, I'm the only people I've shared that with. But that's like, that's really
important.
Thank you
for sharing that.
I want to be stronger on the other side of this, and I think all of us can be better on the other side of this. Not like, okay, now we're back to normal,
And of course, meditation plays a big role with keeping that, right? Like, of course, right? Daily meditation.
Because our conditioned behaviors are conditioned for, how long you married, 5, 10, 20 years, So like, we know what those roles are. They're all conditioned. So you're not just going to stop them and do something else.
Right.
The only way to break free of conditioned behaviors, or break free of a rut, or break free of a bad habit, or break free of an addiction, is to insert a pattern interrupt into that space. And meditation gives me that opportunity a couple of times a day, at least 2, but throughout the course of the day, I'll take these breaks in the action, because if something's coming into you, that's come into you a couple of thousand times, you're going to respond the same way you've responded those last couple of thousand times. But if you can put a break, goes back to the Bhagavad Gita, establish yourself in the present moment, and then perform action. That pregnant pause, even that was uncomfortable here. Me just holding on to silence for like a couple of more beats. It's uncomfortable in our life. We're always finishing people's sentences. We're always filling the void. You've got 10 seconds, look at your phone. You've got 20 minutes to sit in the doctor's office, work on emails or read Highlights magazine. Like, we're always trying to fill the time. No one's just actually willing to like get still before they're brilliant. And so meditation helps you do that. I don't have to think about it. I don't have to try. Right. I've woven stillness and silence into me so that it naturally is chasing me all day long. And when things come into me, hopefully my responses to them are in proportion to what came in, right? We've all been that. You're having like a really crappy day, or you're feeling irritated and someone says, hey, can I get you a cup of coffee? And you're like, no. Like, here's someone was about to like give you a gift, or like was thinking of you, and you're like too like wrapped up in your own little swirl, and like, well, that wasn't proportionate. The answer should be, oh my God, you're so kind to think of me, and you want to get me a cup of coffee. I don't want one right now, but that was so sweet. Thank you so much. I love you. Like, that should be the response always to things like that. But like, we're swept up in our own little, tornado.
Yeah. It makes, and you say that, and I want to relate to that because I've been practicing meditation daily for a year and a half. As my listeners know, we talk about it. Everybody that's been on my podcast is a daily meditator, except for 1 or 2 people. And you know, I sometimes I beat myself up for reaction that I have to certain situations, and I know you're not, you know, I shouldn't do that. But it's a constant work in progress. I have to keep telling myself, and for the people listening, just like Davidji is saying, you know, like, we're not perfect, like he said earlier, which is amazing to me that he's not perfect, right? After all these years of meditation and teaching and practicing. And you know, I'm just at the beginning of my journey, so like, I'm human. I'm going to have reactions like I used to and stuff. It's just way fewer and far between is the goal, right?
Yeah, and something as simple as like during the last 6 weeks, my wife has been coming up with a lot of experimental dishes that we have not normally necessarily had, like as our faves, our go-to meals.
Nice.
And so in the past, when she would say, "Hey, we mostly eat vegan food here," so she's like, "Hey, I'm gonna do this like vegan meatballs with this special brown rice pasta kind of thing." And in the past, I would go like, my response internally would be like, "Oh, that," or and I would say, "Uh-huh," and now, she'll say, "Hey, I'm thinking of making this." I'm like, "Yes, yes, let's do that." Just that shift in like, I want it to succeed. I want it to be great. I don't want to like eat a meal and go, "Ugh, that was horrible again." I want it to be like so beautiful. So just even the way that you know, so I'm pointing to like some bad behaviors that I had in the past, which is
Yeah.
not being ecstatic when she came up with something that she thinks is going to be fun or good or new or special. I want to be as enthusiastic to her dreams, even we're talking about vegan meatballs, however small the dream is. I want to be as
Right.
enthusiastic, because that's better for me. That's better for us. It's better for her. It's better for the energy. Um, so it's really always asking like, what's the best that I could do right now?
Yeah.
Not like what's the least I can get away with, which I think was a mindset that I had, back in the day. Back in the day, 6 weeks ago.
Yeah, right. No, I get it. I get it. That's cool. Um, well, I'm going to throw a couple random questions at you here because we have
Sure.
a few more minutes. You only because you mentioned a couple things, and I'm more curious, and I think people listening might be curious. What does Davidji watch on TV? You said you're into TV shows. What are a few TV shows?
Oh, well, I watch a lot of shows and I'm in like heavy rotation with my standards. Homeland, that was a favorite of mine on Showtime. It just ended. Loved all 3 seasons of Ozark on Netflix. Um, Binging the last 3 episodes of season 6 of Bosch. Love to, if you haven't seen Bosch, we love police like melodrama. So I love The Blacklist. I love Blackish. Blackish is a great show, great Netflix show, Black AF. Also not necessarily for children, but it's by Kenya Barris,
I
who's
just
clearly
started
a god.
watching that, by the way. I have to say that. It's very
Oh,
like warming and hilarious and funny around race. Like it's just funny the way he the way the twist on racism and the way it's
there's
just
so
really
many,
funny.
there's certain directors and certain writers who like are always trying to teach you a lesson, but sort of like spank you in the process.
Yep.
And I would prefer to be to to have some humor and some gravitas, but
Yeah.
don't lecture me. Show me and give me the chance to be better. Show me where clearly I'm failing, and give me the chance as opposed to like spanking or scolding me for previous bad behaviors. And I think that's really what that mindset does. And there's such systemic racism woven into the fabric of our entire society.
Yeah.
And not being black, this clearly I'm on the winning side of that, or the losing side I should say. And so how do we make this how do we make our society better? It's again, it comes back to meditation. What's meditation? It's just expanding our awareness. That's it. Expand your awareness and you'll probably make better decisions. Expand your awareness of things you've done that haven't been your best version. Ideally, you'll choose your best version next time. Ideally. And I think the more times we can connect to stillness and silence, and the more times we can expose ourselves, to that. um, I watch SVU, Special Victims, Law and Order,
Yeah. More crime.
Special Victims I've been watching that for like 9 years. I've watched every single Law and Order, everything that's out there. And, I said to a friend of mine yesterday, I said, all right, I'm done. She goes, what do you mean? I go, I finished Netflix. I'm done.
I finished Netflix.
I finished Netflix. And she said, well, what's next? I go, the only thing next would be to create a show on Netflix, because it's the only one I haven't seen so far. So I watch a lot of, I love Dave Chappelle. He's amazing comedy. I mean, he is also like calling stuff out on just like blows your mind. Dave Chappelle, one of the comic geniuses of our time.
I agree.
But yeah, I finished Netflix, so now I'm like, got to move on to Amazon Prime. Got to do that now.
Prime's next. Hulu's next after that.
No, I did Hulu.
Oh,
Honestly,
okay.
I did Hulu. Handmaid's Tale. I mean, if you haven't seen Handmaid's Tale from beginning to end, that's spectacular. I fell in love so deeply with Elizabeth Moss as an actor in that. So spectacular. And Ozark, Laura Linney, Jason Bateman, geniuses, and that inspired me to go back and watch like 9 seasons of Arrested Development, also, which is also on Netflix.
Good comedy.
So I like very, very uncomfortable comedies. So like uncomfortable comedies, like I want to laugh and be really uncomfortable in the process.
Have you seen Schitt's Creek?
I have not.
My wife was
in that category.
Yeah, I mean, it's her favorite comedy of all time, she said, but it just ended the last season, 6 seasons of it. If I could recommend something that would be really good, I watched a lot of them. It's so funny.
All right, cool. I'll go in there.
You'll like it. But now we'll get out. We won't get too much into TV show topic here, so we'll stop that. And then last year you said books. So a couple more things. So last year you said books, You're reading a lot. What are 2 books that you were like, wow, these are really good that I read recently?
I read the Bhagavad Gita every day.
Right.
That is like part of what I do. And so if you've ever thought of like reading the Bible, Bhagavad Gita is sort of like this universal metaphorical journey that that actually asks, and it asks more questions than it answers, but it's about life, death, purpose, meaning, how to move forward, how to live life with greater grace and greater ease. I think that's like so like amazing. Just like it's really, really powerful. Another book that I'm really big on is I like spiritual books.
Yeah.
I like books about history, and I like spiritual books. I think another great book is Ram Dass's Paths to God. Like so powerful. Lama Surya Das's Awakening the Buddha Within. Really, like, I like to know how people lived thousands of years ago in their hearts. Much less concerned, about. Oh, I just reread Franz Kafka's Metamorphosis. That was pretty intense. I also like reading plays. So I like reading Beckett and Odette's. I don't know. There's
Interesting. Well, you Einstein. Have you read his biographies or autobiographies?
I have read.
Do you have a favorite?
I'm
just curious.
No.
Okay.
No, I like reading. Einstein. There's a lot of Einstein letters that are out there. I like reading like the stuff that Einstein wrote. Einstein wrote a lot of letters. So it just gives you insights to genius. I actually was reading, I don't recommend this to anybody, but I was just reading this like really chock full 700-page book on what's at the heart of a warrior. And it's about the neurological and physiological impact of stress on people in the military and on cops. And so I've really been like exploring that because I love reading neurological white papers. Again, meditation geek kind of thing. I love reading like what happens to the brain and which parts of the brain are sparked and how do we cultivate those and things along those lines. So I'm reading a lot about, because we wouldn't think so, but the US military has done tons of really deep neurological research and physiological research on the impact of people in battle, preparing for battle, after battle. They know all this stuff. And so this is by Lieutenant David Grossman. It's a really, really powerful book. But in there, I really learned a couple of things, and I've been teaching this for years, and I didn't know these things, but as the heart moves up from 65 beats to 75 beats, from 75 beats to 85 beats, from 85 beats to 95 beats, from 95 beats to 105 beats, and over that, we lose sort of like control over our body. Certainly our fine motor skills. This is why when you're like scared and you're trying to like, and you're fumbling for your keys because you can't get your keys out of your purse, or you can't get your key into the lock, that's because suddenly your heart rates come up. And so your fine motor skills are gone. And like under normal circumstances, you just like pick up the key, slide it in the lock. Like, how is it possible you could like take a key and just slide it in the lock without even thinking, and it goes right in, you know, and you turn it. And other times you're like, you can't even do it. It's because of the heart rate. As the heart rate goes up, and as the heart rate goes up, we become, there's a crow right above my head.
Awesome.
As our heart rate goes up, squawking on the truth. I hear you. So as your heart rate goes up, you become less in control of the stuff that matters to you. It's not just physiological, it's emotional as well. That's why when you really, you know, heart rate goes up and you're really pissed off, that's why you blurt out stuff that you wish you could take back. You know, so if we can always just arrest our rising heart rate when we sense it through typical techniques such as 16 seconds or just closing your eyes and taking long, slow, deep breaths in, we slow that flow of hormones and chemicals that makes us not necessarily be our best version, but it's actually a physiological thing. It's not like we hate that person, you know, we suddenly realize, oh my God, I don't hate that person. I'm being run by hormones and chemicals here. Like this really bizarre kind of thing. So we have another.
I love it. It's part of the podcast. I like it. And so, on your earlier mention about the guy that said, you know, what would you want on your tombstone today?
Yeah.
If you die, which of course we don't want to happen, but if you die, what do you want written on your tombstone? And remember, there's not a lot of space on it.
Yeah. Well, as David Simon always said to me, no one gets out of here alive. So like, I know that to be true. None of us are getting out of here. So we're all gonna leave this earth plane at some point. What would I like written on my tombstone? Yogasta Kuru Karmani, which means establish yourself in the present moment and then perform action. I would like that, because I think that one phrase has helped me be a better person, has helped me make a better choice. And I believe it will make everyone's. Could I just like teach us 16 seconds? Maybe you've shared it already.
I literally in 3 seconds was going to say, let's end this with 16 seconds. So okay. That's amazing.
So the beautiful thing about 16 seconds is that everyone's got it. Okay. If you're like, no, I'm too busy for 16 seconds. You got bigger issues than that. So everyone's got it. And in only 16 seconds, we can actually shift what we're thinking about, what we care about, like so many different, you know, we can slow everything down and give our brain that opportunity to take a breath. So think about something right now that's been bothering you a little bit, irritating you a little bit. Don't go too deep. This isn't therapy. Just in the last few days, I'm sure something irked you, and get clear on that. And now close your eyes and watch your breath as you take a long, slow, deep breath in through your nose. Watch that breath go down to your belly and hold it when it gets there. Hold that breath and keep watching it and keep witnessing it and keep observing it. And now release it and watch it as it goes up your chest. Keep witnessing as it moves through your throat, out through your nose or mouth, and keep exhaling and keep watching it. And keep observing as you allow that breath to dissipate into the ether. And now open your eyes and breathe normally. And that was 16 seconds. And in those 16 seconds, if you were playing along, and I know you were, Justin, could see that, you were not thinking about that thing I just asked you to think about. Nothing. And I didn't tell you to stop thinking about it. I just said, close your eyes and watch your breath. So what did we prove? Number one, we can direct our thoughts. So we never have to be stuck in sad or depressing or despondent thoughts if we don't want to. We can shift our attention to wherever we want it to be. We were not in the past. We were not in the future. We were fully present. We introduced a break in the action, just of 16 seconds. Now, maybe you're thinking about that thing right now and you weren't thinking about it before, so I apologize for bringing that into your awareness. But the reality is we have the ability, whether we're stuck in traffic, whether we're on perma hold, waiting for customer service to pick up, whether we're waiting on a long line, whether we're, our computer's booting up and it's taking too long, like whatever it is, even reading an email and getting flustered over it, we have the ability to just introduce a 16-second pattern interrupt. And that's the key, is not just breathing for 16 seconds, it's watching our breath. So watch it as it flows in for about 4 seconds, hold it in your belly for about 4 seconds and keep watching it. Release it, allow it to come back up for about 4 seconds, keep watching it, and then exhale it out and keep holding that breath out for about 4 seconds. And that's enough to actually slow the hormones and chemicals that are inside of us. Like, so what's cooler than that? That's like transformational and no equipment necessary. And we've all got that. So hopefully people, bust that out. Do it 4 times, it's a minute. Do it 20 times, it's 5 minutes. It could be the foundation of your entire meditation practice, or it could just be a tool that you pull out when suddenly you're about to feel stress or anxiety.
Yeah. Yeah. And I love that you could use it. What you said earlier, instead of taking that 10 seconds to look at your phone in between something, do that 16-second breath work every now and then. And it's just it really will change your, like, it sounds cheesy, but it really will change your life. Like if you incorporate that daily.
Yeah.
So,
it's the little things that change our life, because, sometimes like the giant things like coronavirus, it's giant, but it didn't change our lives. It's all those little things that we're doing to respond to it. Every single one of those little things, how we treat the people we live with, how we treat ourselves, what we do with the world, where our mind goes, what we dedicate ourselves to, what sparks inside of our heart. It's those little choices in the big thing that makes the difference.
Love it. Davidji, thank you so much for being here. So grateful. So did you have fun?
Oh my God, this is so great. I can hang out with you for like days, obviously. It's beautiful.
I love it. Thank you. I appreciate that. Are you able to pick your computer up and do like a circle? I'm always curious what's around you. Can we do that or no?
Yeah, let me just unplug a few things here.
I mean, I've only seen this view a lot, so I wanted to,
Yeah.
Is this your front or back patio here?
This is my backyard.
The backyard.
It's like
Awesome. Well, pretty.
I'm pretty much like in my little tree house here.
Yeah, you are. I can't wait to be able to go outside out in Rochester, New York. That should be in a couple of weeks, so we're excited.
No, who knows? They're like, our parks open. They opened our parks and then they closed our parks.
Oh, did they? No, they're not open yet.
They opened the beaches last Monday.
Yeah.
So we've had like all the beaches were wide open for a week. And like, I think yesterday they said effective Saturday, they're, effective tomorrow, they're closing everything again.
Oh, I didn't know that. Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
So they did
Weird.
this and apparently, apparently like our numbers are still accelerating. So it was like, why were we doing that when our numbers are like going like this? So
interesting. They're teasing you. They're messing with you guys. That's what's going on.
So I think if you get, if they don't open up, the world for you so soon, like right now, probably in 2 weeks, you will be able to go outside. I mean,
I just meant warm weather-wise, honestly. Like we're barely hitting 50s here, so I'm like, oh man, look at you're out there enjoying the sunshine. Like we haven't seen sun in like 6 days. I mean, there's beauty in that, obviously, but it's nice to see it and talking to you. It's nice to see it talking to you.
Listen, I went to school in upstate New York in Syracuse, so yeah. I know when those days where suddenly we had sun, no one went to class. Everyone was, everyone was just like laying around, playing frisbee, doing whatever. Like those classes, they were empty. I wouldn't even know because I never went to a class, because we only had about, and my girlfriend at the time went to Binghamton, which I think has the least amount of sunlit, sunny sky, blue sky hours of any place in the United States. And
Binghamton,
so like,
New York.
And there's a correlation between that and suicide, if you can even believe that.
Yeah.
The three least sunny places in the United States, I think, are like Portland, Maine, Binghamton, and Portland, Oregon, I think. And those also have like 3 of the highest suicide rates. So yes, I wish sunshine on you and warm weather and a beautiful spring. You know, we've got what we call May gray. So it's going to be like overcast for the next 30 days here. It may be
Oh,
warm,
interesting.
but it'll be overcast. So like our Mays are just like white sky.
Oh, I didn't know that. Interesting.
Yeah.
Well, I know you have a 2 o'clock that you have to jump on and take
Yeah.
care of. So appreciate you and appreciate what you're doing. And namaste. And also, yeah, I'm excited to go back in. I'm taking Davidji's meditation training, or whatever you want to call it. It's Cindy's too. I'm not even sure what the actual name of it is, but
It's the Breathe Yoga Meditation Teacher Training.
yes, yeah, I'm taking. I don't even know the official name. So there we go. All right. Thank you so much. I'll let you go, Davidji. I appreciate
Hey,
it.
thank you. This was a lot of fun. Hopefully I was able to add some value.
Oh, yeah, you
to
did.
your
You
listeners.
absolutely did. Thanks.
All right.